You are welcome on board, our Sheikh. Permit me to use Sheikh more than Professor. I guess both are interchangeable, but Sheikh, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Engineer Ismail, and to all other members of today's audience. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah, sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Having started in the name of Almighty Allah, the most gracious and the most merciful, and I ask him to send more peace and blessings on the last of his messengers and the seal of his prophets, Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And may that be extended to cover all members of his household, all of his companions, and whoever tries to follow their footsteps until the day of reckoning. Let me begin by saying unto you all in the house, good afternoon to our non-Muslim audience, and to all of you, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Well, because time is not on our side for today's program, I actually struggled to find this 1 hour or thereabout to be with you. I have explained to Ismail the nature of my schedule today, but knowing the importance of the topic and also the importance of my audience today, I want to say that I'm happy that I eventually was able to make it. And I pray to Almighty Allah that whatever time we spend with one another today will be beneficial to all in this life and in the next one. We want to talk of Islamic finance. To us Muslims, we call it Islamic finance. But I'm quite mindful of my non-Muslim audience today. It may be known with some other terminologies, other nomenclatures to them. It is synonymous, whether you call it Islamic finance, you call it non-interest finance, or even interest-free finance. Now, by way of clarifying this concept, what exactly does Islamic finance or non-interest finance or interest-free finance or banking or cooperative system, what does it stand for? It's as simple as this. The old essence of financing or even banking, when we go down the memory lane, what actually brought financing into being? People have lived in this world for centuries without any form of banking, without any form of financing, formal financing, I mean, and without even any form of cooperative society. But what actually brought it into being is the fact that it was felt that there was a need to bring the two units of any economy, to bring them together in a way that will be beneficial to all. What are the two units of economy that I am referring to? We have in every economy, big or small, there is what we call deficit units, and there is what we call surplus units. Meaning, there will be some people, some individuals or organizations that will have more than enough. They have more than enough what they can spend at the moment. They will have to keep the rest of their money somewhere. They don't need it now. So we call them surplus units. We look at the other end, you have the deficit units who have brilliant ideas, commercial ideas, but they lack the wherewithal, they lack funds, they lack money to put those beautiful ideas into practice in such a way that they will become beneficial to the society in which both the deficit and the surplus unit of the economy live. So there was a need. That need was felt. How can we bring the two together? And that is what brought about what you might have heard of in the history of banking anywhere, any form of banking or financing. That is what we call the theory of financial intermediation, intermediating between the surplus unit and the deficit unit. How can we bring the two together? That those who have more than what they need will have a way of benefiting from that excess. And those that have less than what they need will not be prevented, will not be disallowed from taking advantage of their beautiful ideas or entrepreneurial activities because they lack fund. So financial intermediation was that strategy, was the mechanism used to bring the two units together. But unfortunately, for centuries, financial intermediation was believed to be able to function based on one factor. If you remove that factor, it was claimed there could be no financial intermediation. And that factor, that element is what we call today interest. Interest. It was believed for centuries, since the inception of banking, introduction of banking and financing into the first human society, that yes, we could bring the two units together through a mechanism of financial intermediation, but there must be an element of interest, paid and taken. The deficit unit that will make use of the excess money belonging to the surplus unit will have to pay interest. Will have to pay interest. Interestingly, financial intermediation brought about a third party. You know, if the two units can relate directly with one another, there won't be any need for any bank or any cooperative society or any financial institution. And this is what takes place in what we call the capital market today. In capital market, the provider of fund and the user of fund can meet face to face and exchange the benefit. There will be no need for any financial intermediary. But that is not possible when we talk of financing, when we talk of banking, when we talk of cooperatives. There is need for an intermediator, let me put it that way, who will now be the intermediary between the surplus unit and the deficit unit. This introduction may be relatively long, but if you get it right, what comes after will be simpler in assimilation. I hope I'm still being heard.
Clearly, sir.
Okay, because technology may fail you without you knowing.
Clearly, sir.
Good, good. As I was saying, the financial intermediary role being played by a bank, a cooperative society, was also believed, and wrongly so, to have only one basis. And that basis also was conceived as being interest. That you can only be a financial, we can play the role of financial intermediary between surplus and deficit unit only when you charge and you give interest. And how does it work? Let me put myself in the shoes of a financial intermediary as a bank or cooperative. I don't have money, I don't belong to deficit or surplus unit, but I will intermediate between the two of them. I will ask the surplus unit, what is the excess that you are having? And you want to take advantage of that one. You are not using it. I will collect from the surplus unit. In collecting from it, I will promise it to pay interest. Then I will go to the deficit unit and ask him, you have beautiful ideas, but you lack funds. How much do you need? I will provide that for you, but you must pay me interest. In most cases, up till today, what the financial intermediary will promise the owner of the fund will be far, far, far less, smaller in amount to what it will get from the real user of that fund, who happens to be the deficit unit. especially in a country like Nigeria. A study carried out some few years ago, and I quoted this in my inaugural lecture last year, has it that is as bad as having the ratio, the difference between what a bank promises to pay back the owner of the fund and what it gets from the real user of the fund, that is called interest, to be as huge as between 1 and 25, or sometimes between 1 and more than that. And this is where Islamic finance comes into play. About just 40 years ago, less than 50 years ago, we had a team of economists, a team of bankers, a team of Sharia scholars, professors, and other scholars in Islamic law. They came together to say, no, this injustice can never continue because it's detrimental at the long run to even the development of the society or its economy. Of new order in financial intermediation that will intermediate between surplus and deficit units, but without charging or paying interest. So this is the whole essence of Islamic finance, and briefly how it came into being. Like I told you not quite long ago, just about 40-something years ago or thereabout. But I'm happy to announce to you in this gathering today that it has been developing, it has been growing and waxing stronger and stronger. Something that conventional banking has operated for more than 300 years as of today. When you see the new banking order that has no interest, no element of interest, that tries to avoid the injustice of taking more, far, far, far more without contributing to the commercial activity. When you compare the growth, the development in this sector, you will be amazed. We have all over the world today, in more than 80 countries of the world, where this form of financing is being practiced, not only in Muslim countries. In fact, majority of them are non-Muslim countries when we say 80 countries of the world. Not only that, this form of financing or new order in financial intermediation is in control of wealth that is up to $3 trillion in the world today. So it has become a very huge market. So this is the introduction that I like to share with you, that will give you a very clear picture of what we are talking about. Why did we need Islamic finance? It's not just a matter of, like, erroneously some people will believe it, that Muslims will always like to have their own. It's not just having liking to have your own, but having something that will be unique and will be of benefit to all, regardless of religion, tribe, color, and whatever factor. Now, we spoke about Islamic finance being interest-free, being non-interest. And that makes the element of interest to be the most obvious when you are looking at the components, what makes Islamic finance to work. Absence of interest is the most conspicuous. And this is what makes it so important that we must specifically talk on that. As people of faith, we as Muslims, others as Christians or Jews or whatever religion, it is not only in Islam that even this element of interest is prohibited. We must know that and have that at the back of our mind. Even in the Bible, we have many verses of Bible that equally prohibit paying or giving interest in transaction. To save our time, I will just give you references that you can also go and check if you have your own copy of the Bible, especially our non-Muslim audience. You can look at Leviticus 25, 36, and 37, Deuteronomy 23, verses 19 to 20, Exodus 22, verse 25, and Psalm verse 15, chapter 15, verse 5. For us Muslims, we have in Surah Al-Baqarah, in Surah Al Imran, and in so many other chapters of Al-Quran al-Karim. But I would like to recite unto you one that frightens me most. And I wonder whether Muslims are aware of this particular verse, the existence of this particular verse in our holy book, in the noble Quran. It says in Surah Al-Baqarah, that is chapter 2 of Al-Quran al-Karim, verse number 279. I'm quoting the references so that you can go and confirm by yourself. It says, Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 279, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فإن لم تفعلوا فأذنوا بحرب من الله ورسوله. The preceding verses from 275, 276, 277, 278 are all warnings about engaging in payment or charging interest in commercial transactions. But when it comes to this particular one, 279, listen to what Almighty Allah says. فَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلُوا, upon all what we have been saying of the danger, of the disadvantages, of why you must avoid interest, if you fail to desist from so doing, فَأْذَنُوا بِحَرْبٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ, then you should get prepared for a war between you and Almighty Allah and His Messenger. I repeat it. If you fail to desist from riba, having known the injunction of your religion against it, then Allah says clearly, then the consequence must be you are preparing for a war. A war with whom? With your Creator and with the messenger of Almighty Allah that was sent to you. I wonder who will win such a war. Nobody. So it's so serious as a matter, because like I said, it frightens me. And I wonder whether Muslims actually read this particular verse of Al-Quran al-Karim. Once again, you can cross-check it. Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, verse 279. So, as I said, as people of faith that believe in scriptures, this is the position of our scriptures, Al-Quran and the Bible, like I've given you some of the verses in both scriptures. In addition to that, and as a general principle, you see, if our Creator, Almighty God, Almighty Allah, asks us to abstain from anything, that doesn't mean that we will harm Him if we do. We can never harm God. God has no business that will be afraid of being duped when you go into transaction and charge or take interest. That is not the reason. The reason, if you look deep, if you look critically into whatever you have been prohibited from doing, it will be for the interest of mankind, generally. Yes, you may claim that some individuals, some segment or component of the society will also derive benefit from charging and taking interest. But looking at a larger picture in the overall interest of the human society, charging or taking interest is detrimental to the growth and development of human beings generally in every facet of life. You and I can look at our societies in which we live, or which we have lived, or which we have visited, or which we have heard of. I believe all of us will have stories to tell of people who have been plunged into sudden poverty and unexpected deprivation on account of going to get a loan on which interest was charged and he or she was unable to pay off and lost everything that he had acquired even before getting that loan. Anybody in any society must have examples to cite and say, I know of or I've heard of. But today, to save our time, I will point to what affects all of us here as today's audience, as Nigerians. I will quote our former president, President Olusegun, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, GCFR. He said something while he was still a sitting president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, that is between 1999 and 2007. Are we still together?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Prof. Yes,
Yeah,
Prof.
because
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
started hearing some noises from the background.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
we do, sir.
Yes, Prof.
okay.
We are here with you, sir.
Yeah,
Yeah, where?
General Olusegun Obasanjo said, and I quote, while he was still a sitting president, he was lamenting as a result of some of the loans that we got as a nation. Let me read unto you exactly what he said. He said, and I quote, all that we had borrowed up to 1985 or in 1986 was around $5 billion. And we have paid about $16 billion. Yet, we are still being told that we owe about $28 billion. Can anybody calculate that one? I will come to ask of the total. Can you hear me, please? When you get 5, you could hear me.
We have paid 16
Okay.
and still
You got
owing
5.
28.
You paid 16, and yet you still owe 28. So you give me the total later, but let me continue with this citation from General President Olusegun Obasanjo. He continued by saying that $28 billion came about because of the injustice, underline that, because of the injustice in the foreign creditors' interest rates. If you ask me, it's still President Obasanjo speaking, not Professor Alaro. If you ask me, what is the worst thing in the world? I will say it is interest, end of quotes. That was President Olusegun Obasanjo as a sitting president who must know the stark reality of what we owed and what you have paid and what we were still owing as a sitting president. In fact, as a former head of state before becoming a civilian president. So that is just to buttress the point I raised earlier, that if Allah asks you not to do something, it doesn't mean that you will harm him if you do. You will harm yourself, harm a relative knowingly or unknowingly, or even harm the entire society in the long run. And that is the essence of prohibition of interest in commercial and banking and financial transactions as we have it in both scriptures, the Noble Quran, and even the Holy Bible. So let me now move to what are the real benefits when we talk of in terms of now the economic benefits of having a system that will be interest-free, having a banking order, a financial intermediation mechanism that will not charge or pay interest. What do we stand to gain, either as individuals, organizations, countries, or societies? There are 3 main benefits that you can see clearly. I will further explain them. That Islamic or non-interest finance has above any other form of finance. Number 1, it is an equitable system of financing. What do we mean by that? The golden principle of Islamic finance that guides its operations anywhere in the world, there is one golden principle. And that principle says, benefit goes with damage and revenue follows liability. It's a golden principle of business in Islamic finance, of banking or cooperative. That the two must go together. Benefit with damage, revenue and liability. In other words, wherever you stand to gain, you must ever prepare also to lose in case there is any loss to be borne. What happens in the conventional setting of financing is that the system has been created for some people to always rake in benefit, derive advantages, but at the same time will shield themselves. They will shield themselves from having anything to share if the same operation, the same activity that has given them a lot will run into a problem one day? They will insulate themselves from sharing of the loss. That is not acceptable in Islamic finance. And that is why it is equitable. It says your loss bearing must go with your profit sharing. And that is why it is also known in some other climes as a PLS system, profit sharing and loss bearing system. It is true. That is also true of Islamic finance as an equitable form of banking or finance or cooperative society. It is equitable. One. Another benefit that we can see clearly is that it's an ethical form of business. It looks into what ultimately benefit the society, not just a small percentage of the society, but it looks always to the larger picture. And that's why no matter how lucrative it is, if anything is going to be harmful to the society at large, then it can never be financed through an Islamic banking system. That is why anything that is not halal, that is the word. Halal means pure and safe for consumption. Anything that is not halal, that is not pure, that is not safe for human usage and consumption, for the societal well-being and welfare, then this form of finance is a no-go area. It can never be used to finance it. So it's an ethical form of financing, it's an ethical way of financial intermediation. That profit is not the only determinant factor for this type of financing or banking. It looks beyond that to see whether what is being financed, what the fund is being used for, is for the benefit or for the destruction or something that will be harmful to a society generally. Benefit number 3. This form of financing is also developmental in nature. It's the quickest way of introducing development into any society, and I will explain why. This form of financing promotes one important principle. It says, money does not beget money without putting it into any productive activity. Money must be traded with, but we don't trade in money. Trading with money, but not in money. You cannot just live somewhere because you have acquired either wrongly or rightly, legitimately or illegitimately, a very huge amount of money that's supposed maybe to belong to others. But we don't even we are not looking at that now. No matter the source of your wealth, you can, whether halal, legitimate or illegitimate, it's not enough for you to take advantage of that and deprive others of the fruit of their labor in so many ways. You too must also be part of the activities that generate profit before you can lay claim to any percentage of profit. So it's developmental in nature. That is why it encourages what we call the real sector of the economy, where goods are produced and services are equally offered. There must be an element of commercial activities wherein we want to claim that we have profit. It's not enough that because I have a lot of money, I put it as a loan for someone, not caring about what happens, not caring about what he does, then all I'm waiting for is that at the end of the day, whether he loses or he gains, he must pay me back a percentage that I've agreed upon. Money itself does not beget money. We can only trade with money, and this is what Islamic finance, in a unique way, has actually come to promote. And I would like to give here a practical example that you can all see. I know even in Port Harcourt, in almost in every part of this country, in all the 6 geopolitical zones, you must have seen some key economic roads, federal government roads, that are being developed through an instrument called sukuk. Sukuk is an Arabic word, but it has entered into our English lexicon. Everybody now says sukuk, sukuk, sukuk road, sukuk road. What does it mean? It's one way of proving clearly that this form of financing is all about development. What makes a difference? Government, since it started issuing sukuk in 2017, it has never stopped using it. And it will never stop using it because it's beneficial to the nation. In fact, in the budget presentation just a few days ago, you will also see the word sukuk conspicuously appearing in the speech of Mr. President. And by the way, it's not because Mr. President is a Muslim. Let me reveal to you as a secret, as being part of the system that brought about this sukuk. Sukuk was first conceived as an idea under President Jonathan's administration. So all what this government has done, and beautifully done, is to continue that good work. So what I'm saying here is that sukuk is a way that will let us see clearly how developmental is Islamic finance or Islamic banking. What makes a difference? Why are we seeing a difference now? Rules have been developed in the past and will be developed in the coming years. But the only difference that has been introduced by sukuk is this element of tying, relating directly, tying money to an asset. That is not money begetting money, but money must be used to provide something, to produce something, because before you can lay claim to profit emanating or arising from that. This issue of sukuk, it operates this way. We have an asset that we want to develop. We call on people not to loan us money. That's the difference between bond and sukuk. If government wants to go to the bond market, it doesn't need to tell you what I'm going to use the money for. Or even if it tells you, all what you need is to give money and agree on the percentage of interest to be paid as coupon on your sukuk, but on your bond rather. But in sukuk, because it is trading with money, money must be tied to an asset. It has to be put into a way that will be developmental and productive. So we have an asset, which in this case is a road that we want to develop. We will invite people, come and invest. Come and put your money that will go into production of those roads. And you will become a temporary owner of those roads. You will bear the liability of whatever happens to those roads. And by virtue of that, you are entitled to their benefit throughout the period of your ownership of that road. So government will say, if you develop this road, own it for a period of a number of years. In most cases in Nigeria, they use 7 years. For those 7 years, you are the temporary, you are the owner. You are the owner of those roads. And you can lease your property now to the government of the federation to pay you rent. At the end of the tenure, your ownership may come to an end by just selling that property to the government, and you recoup your investment at the end of the tenure. But it's all about the golden principle that I told you, I said earlier on. Benefit must always go to damage, and revenue must follow liability. So my dear brothers and sisters, the last point that I would like to address here before moving to the question and answers session, I would also like to address some misconceptions. I know some people might have had it in their mind that I will ask questions on this. If I'm able to reduce those the number of questions to be raised, it will be good. And that is why I always like to go into this area. We have talked about the essence of Islamic finance, the position of scriptures on Islamic finance, the benefit, the real benefit of Islamic finance to individuals and societies, the danger inherent, either spiritually or even socio-economically. We have said all that. What are the dangers inherent in continuing to partake in interest-based transactions? Now, what are those misconceptions? I will mention just two for want of time. The first misconception, and I'm happy we have non-Muslims as part of today's audience, is the total lie that is being peddled around in some cultures, that Islamic banking is synonymous to Islamization. If you allow your cooperative society to practice Islamic banking, that means you have begun the process of Islamizing your members. That's a total lie. I told you earlier on, we have 80 countries of the world today. Let me mention some of them to you. By the way, United Kingdom, the Great Britain that we all know, is a Christian dominated state. In fact, the Queen of England, now the King of England, you know, is officially the head of the English church, is both spiritual and political leader of the UK. So for UK to have embraced Islamic finance and remains as it was a Christian majority state actually tells you that what is being said about Islamic banking, Islamic cooperative as a way of trying to Islamize you, Islamize nations is a total lie. Islamic banking is being practiced in the UK, in the US, in Canada, in France, in China, in Japan, in South Africa here. South Africa has less than 5% Muslim population. And ironically, it was South Africa that brought Islamic banking to Nigeria. Imagine a country with at least more than 50% Muslim population waited until South Africa came and introduced through Stanbic IBTC Bank, Islamic banking to Nigeria. So we need to be factual as citizens of this country. It's not true, it's total lie. Anywhere you hear that, tell them it's a total lie. And let me also add that World Bank, as an international organization, couldn't have allowed a unit, a department of its own to be called Islamic Finance Department if it's all about Islamization. The World Bank is not a religious organization, and it's not even populated by Muslims anyway. But what will surprise you most is that the head of Islamic finance today in the World Bank is a Christian, and he's one of us. He's a Nigerian. He's a Yoruba like some of us. Mr. Abayomi Alawode is a Nigerian. He's a Christian. He's sitting at the head of Islamic Finance Department of World Bank today. So I'm giving you all this fact so that you disabuse your mind from this lie. I don't know whether to call it white lie or black lie, but lie is lie. It's a total lie. And it's one of the misconceptions surrounding why some people are still scary. They are still scared. They are still afraid of embracing what has been embraced in most part of the world, and is to the benefit of humanity. The second misconception, some few days ago, someone sent to me a video clip. A lady conducted an interview on the streets of Lagos, asking people about what they know of Islamic finance or non-interest finance or non-interest banking. Majority of the respondents were actually ignorant of the existence of this form of finance, even in the country, in Nigeria. But what actually caught my attention most is the fact that some of them are still raising this issue of how can that be? It's impossible. The notion that existed hundreds of years ago that has been debunked, like I told you, more than 40 years ago, that you can have a financial intermediation order without interest. It's possible. It has been practiced. It's been practiced successively. Some people are still raising questions, but do you know what they are saying? How it's not possible. That means that we don't be returned. The bank will just give you money to go and use. Cooperative will just give you money to go and use. How would that be possible? They are in business. We all agree they are in business. So you just have to ask questions. How does it work? I'll give you an example of how sukuk is working. Does sukuk means no return? The answer is no. And the entire Islamic banking and finance does not say there's no return. But the return must be in a halal, in a Sharia compliant way. And that is why we have a plethora of products and services that are rendered, that could be rendered either by a bank, a cooperative society, a financial institution that wants to operate based on Sharia or Islamic banking system. A lot of products are there for you to make use of, and you will derive your halal, you will get your halal profit and your halal return. So it's a misconception for people to think that when we say non-interest, as if we are saying no return. No, the two are not the same. Yes, Islamic finance is interest-free, but it is not dividend or return free. On this note, I think we've said enough in my own assessment of the topic today, but if we still have some areas needing clarifications, we have about 10 more minutes to use. It will be time for us here by 3:30. So we can use those 10 minutes to raise those questions. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Thank you so much, sir, Sheikh and Professor. We can't thank you enough. I believe the participants on this program are already putting some questions on the chat. We'll read through them. But before we go back to those, maybe we have some with questions I would like to ask verbally. Are there any questions? Can you raise your hand so that we give you audience? So while we are waiting for, okay, so we have a hand up already. Brother Kazim Isa, please, you may go ahead.
Okay, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And thanks to our prof for the very clear lecture. It really clarifies the difference between Islamic banking and the conventional banking. However, specifically now to the cooperative, can you please give us specific examples of how the cooperative can also be, can also venture into the Islamic banking, understanding that today what they do, amongst other things, is also to give loans to people, and in that case, it is money begetting money. So how other ways can the cooperative, in specific terms now, also maybe looking into, perhaps that will guide them on further discussions? Thank you, sir.
Okay, noted. Thank you. I would prefer to take all the questions. That will save our time and answer at once. At least we go to, at least when it is 3:30, we call it a day.
Yes, so I agree to that. So we have an answer of Brother Mumin. Can you please go ahead, sir?
Assalamu alaikum once again. Okay, one of the questions I wanted to ask was the one asked by the brother. The second one is more of a request. Can Prof give us names of operators of Islamic mortgage in places like UK and US, and what are the different Islamic mortgages that are available in those environments?
The speaker is talking from UK or from Nigeria?
From Nigeria, but who has interest in those countries?
Okay, okay. Because I thought you would be asking of mortgage operators in Nigeria, but you said UK. No problem. Any other question?
I guess so. If you permit me, sir, I also have a question myself. So it's in line with what the first questioner mentioned in terms of packages from the cooperative. So I am curious to know, from where you stand today. You sit today at the Regulatory Council for the CBN, for the Debt Management Office. A lot of national agencies are there. You are supervising. Is there any specific requirement, for example, from legal and policy perspective, that we will say the cooperative has to meet before they might be able to offer us packages that are based on Islamic principles?
Okay, okay. I think we can stop at this level. These are general questions that, when answered, they will cut across so many issues.
Okay, so I think one more.
Are we okay?
If you permit to entertain
let's
this
take
last
one more. No problem, no problem.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm actually reading some of the chat, some of the questions that are in the chat, so that you can take all of them together.
Okay.
One of our brother is asking, is forex trading, is it haram? Since it appears to be money trading without goods and services.
Okay.
That is one. The second one I will also read is one of our brother asked that a brother approached one of the Islamic bank, Jais precisely, for finance, and said the condition is almost at par with the loan he gets from a conventional bank. Could you please shed lights on this?
Okay.
And
So we have
lastly,
a total of 5 questions. I'm
and
afraid
lastly,
we may not be able to answer all. So no problem. What's your next question?
Is it Islamic to buy some goods, keep it for some times before selling it out?
You are talking of hoarding.
Yeah, I think that is the is the question. That's last.
That requires another lecture. Okay, thank you for these good questions. Let me start. Let me take the questions in the same order that they were given. The first one asks about, in practical terms, what can a cooperative society do to key into this form of financing? It's very clear. Anything that is being done by an Islamic bank, nothing stops a cooperative society from doing the same thing, especially when we talk of financial activities. Like somebody mentioned mortgage. If a bank is doing mortgage, what stops a cooperative society from also keying into mortgage that will be halal? So practically, except where the law says a cooperative society cannot venture into so, that will be the only limitation. Other than that, anything that is being done in the banking sector can equally be done by a cooperative society. Let me marry this with the third question, I think from Ismail himself, asking about what legal or policy framework or strategy you should take as a cooperative society. By way of advising you, you see, a cooperative society that operates on giving loan to members is not productive. It's not productive. Most people will come to take loan for consumption purposes. Buy something, buy gadgets, buy a house, so it's just for consumption. They are not participating, they are not contributing into the development of the economy. What you can do, and what I know a lot of corporate societies, even in Nigeria, have done successively, is to float a microfinance bank at your own level. I'm happy you mentioned it, that your worth is even bigger than some regional banks. So you can have a license for a microfinance, halal microfinance bank that will be licensed by Central Bank of Nigeria. There is a separate license for non-interest microfinance that will even require you to have a capital base that is not as huge as floating a regional or national bank. So that is the practical way in terms of policy change that you may effect if you want this thing to be practiced well as it ought to be. So I can give you examples like there's one microfinance bank in Ijebu-Ode. If some of you are from Ogun State, you might have heard of that. Al-Hayat Cooperative Society, they started like you as a cooperative society. They have one of the most successful microfinance banks in the country today. Through microfinance bank, you can now key conveniently into what I told you. Whatever a bigger bank is doing, a microfinance bank can also do the same thing. And you will now venture into most productive activities, economic, commercial activities, rather than just loan for consumption purposes that does not in any way contribute to the development or growth and development of any economy. So that is the way to go. Now moving to question 2, operators of mortgage in UK. Well, I'm not a resident of UK, but because I do visit and I have so many interactions with people over there, especially on Islamic finance, at least I can tell you clearly that, interestingly, the UK had its own Islamic bank even before Jaiz Bank in Nigeria was introduced. That's also a fact. So there are a lot, not just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A lot are there in the UK. This bank that I told you, it started with the name Islamic Bank of Britain, but recently it has been acquired by a bigger bank and renamed it a Royan Bank in the heart of London. And there are so many other smaller mortgage institutions, financial institutions operating exclusively based on Sharia rules or Islamic banking concept. So, and also in Nigeria, that's why I said, are you a UK resident? Because it must interest you more what happens here in Nigeria. Interestingly, recently, the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria has also introduced a new scheme that will allow contributors to housing scheme in Nigeria to choose non-interest mortgage system. It has just been announced about a few months ago. So it's also happening here, not only in the UK. The two remaining questions will require separate lectures, Ismail. One is talking about Forex. That's a very wide topic. Another one is talking about hoarding. Is a very wide topic. But quickly, Forex will be halal if it satisfies two conditions. Two conditions, especially when you are exchanging, okay, let's limit it to one. Forex means foreign exchange, not the same currency, different currencies. The most important conditions that must be fulfilled is that it must be instantaneous. What is the meaning of that? You cannot give dollar today and be promised to be paid naira tomorrow, or even in the next few hours. It has to be instantaneous. That is the injunction. That is what the Prophet ﷺ said in relation to that. But as I warned, this is not a comprehensive answer on Forex. There are a lot of issues that may go wrong with Forex trading, especially when you go into most online Forex trading. They will include elements of what we call options, either put option or call option. All these ones are not Sharia compliant. And that is why I advise you that it may require a separate lecture that we won't have time for at the moment. The same thing with hoarding. There is hoarding that is halal, and there are hoardings that are haram. If only what you do is that you see a commodity in abundance in market, you are not, how do I explain it? You are not imposing on people a situation whereby they will not find the product in the market because of you. You find them in abundance. People are buying and selling, but you prefer not to sell your own while others are selling. That's a form of order that is halal. That, I will wait for some time because the two forces that determine the price are demand and supply. I will wait a bit, maybe when the demand goes up or when the supply decreases, the price will change. That one has no problem. But the problem sets in when you deliberately impose on people. You buy everything. You prevent them from finding the product, and you know they are in need of it, only for you to now sell at your own price that everybody will be forced to buy. That is a form of hoarding that is not haram. But hoarding is also a very big, very wide topic that will require perhaps a different lecture that you may have to invite another lecturer, not Professor Alaro. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So you have to excuse me now. It's time for Asri. Yeah, I am. So inshallah, I hope to see you in future. Inshallah, either physically or virtually. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. وسبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك وصل اللهم وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. Jazakallah
khairan. Thank you so much, everyone. I think we've allowed our prof to step away. For some of us that are still around, I think we could quickly spend a few more minutes to round up here. I have the honor to call our imam in Port Harcourt, brother calls engineer Kosi Mojo, to give us a closing roundup.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To all the non-Muslims, I say good afternoon. It's a very good thing that you have also come to participate in this lecture from Professor Prof.Alaro, a well-known Islamic financial expert and an erudite professor of Islamic finance. We really appreciate you, especially Mr. Oyisi Okatai. We really appreciate you for joining. Madam Ada Nochiri, we also appreciate you. Neka, we also appreciate you. And especially the brother, Mr. Ismail, that even brought the professor to give us this important knowledge. You are well appreciated. In fact, the professor has touched a lot of areas, especially when he said something about deficit units, especially for some people that came late, and the surplus units. Some people have money, but some people, they need money to do business. So the bridge between them, based on conventional banking, conventional financial system, is mainly by interest, which is not good for we Muslims. So in order to do that, Islamic finance comes in to say, okay, we are not dealing with interest in order to satisfy our creator. Because anything we do, we know that this world is a temporary abode. It's where we are going to live, but where we are going to enjoy forever. So all our service of sacrifice, all whatever we are doing, what God has given us, we must use it to worship only Him, and we must not do things against His will. Business is business, people are saying, but we are accountable to our Creator. And that's why the professor stressed that Islamic finance is about ethical finance. It's not like you go to bank, you get money, all the things just went into trash and they will take your property. Islamic finance is about sharing profit and loss together. So you go in, you both together in terms of profit and also in terms of loss, you share it together. It's also developmental in nature, like Sukuk. I can remember I was passing through Ilorin road to Bomosho, this new express, and you will see that signboard, Sukuk, being financed by Sukuk Fund, they raised from the citizens. So for me, all these things can work. But my only concern is that how can we adapt this thing in our total? Maybe the president of the president can also
83270953669.
Sulaiman, can you meet your okay? So we need to see how we can practice this model in total, especially in cooperative. I would tell you, it's because of this loan issue, it's interest issue. I quit cooperative in around 2002 or 3 or 4 because of the interest. So it's the same question I was asking in Canada last time in May. How do I get mortgage? So for us, it's high time also the cooperative look at look at options, to meet the needs of the Muslims. And he also stressed finally about the misconception. People will think that introducing Islamic Bank, I could remember when people were fighting Buhari, you want to Islamize Nigeria, not knowing that it was even Professor Soludo, all these people that even brought this Islamic Development Bank of Britain is there. In many other countries, it's not a way of Islamization, but it's a main way of doing things in line with what God has asked us to do. There are businesses but is it in line with what God has instructed? So these are our own questions in order to guarantee our life in this world and also in the hereafter. So we pray for the professor, Allah grants, continue to grant him good knowledge. And for those who have participated in this lecture, we pray to God to continue to be with you and to grant all of us honorable mention in this world and also in the hereafter. So I rest my case here. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you so much, sir, and thanks to everyone. I think it would just be fair to allow someone from the cooperative say something. Having been part of this session today, is there a way forward? Is there something that could be done? Is there a message for the house? We appreciate a word from your end.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Hello?
Hello, good afternoon.
Most welcome.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, my name is Neka. I head the Financial Services Department of the cooperative. I'm very grateful to be here today. I really appreciate this opportunity. It's been very informative and enlightening. I've always heard about Islamic banking, but I had very limited.
Your recording has reached the maximum length. To replay your message, press 1. To delete and re-record your message, press 3. For delivery options, press 4. To send a fax, press 6.
I had very limited information about Islamic banking, but today it's been very, very educative. I really appreciate it. And I want to thank the organization or those who organized this event for giving me the opportunity to participate. And I must say that it's coming at a very good time, a time where we're looking at designing a product that will be in line with the Islamic banking. There's something we're already working on. So we'll take this, what we've learned today, myself and my team member, Ada, who is present in this meeting, we'll take it back and review the product we're working on. And I'm sure we'll bring out something that will be very beneficial to every one of us. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Sorry, let me also say something.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Neka. So I think I was invited. I'm no longer the president. I think maybe people wanted to invite Julie, but for some reason I was invited. But I want to just say, I mean, speaking as an individual, it was an excellent presentation. I personally also had the bias that Islamic banking was to Islamize a place, but things have been put, the professor rightly put it in a good context, and that it's just a way of the Islamic way of doing things, and it's even also consistent with the Bible. The Bible tells us we should not lend out things for usury. We should not give things at interest, but of course, many people are not actually following it as it should be. I would want to recommend that it's excellent, and you've spoken to NECA that it would be good to have the cooperative CMC. I'm no longer part of them, but I wish maybe they had the opportunity to listen, especially not from the colleagues, but from a third party who has competence in this subject. And like Ineka said, it's a product, it's an option. So provided it's an option and we have Muslims as our members, we as a cooperative are all encompassing to meet people's needs. But if people are not educated and they don't understand what the principle is behind it, it's very easy to come with that bias. So I think it was an excellent presentation, excellent insight. There are values that I agree with those values, but I think to further it will be good to have a presentation like this for the cooperative management to listen with an open mind, an unbiased mind, and to understand, okay, this is what it is. And remember, you have Muslims among you, and we have to fit into everyone. And if Christians want to bring Christian banking, why not? We embrace it, provided that it's the principle, because we are multi-religious environment. So provided we are not infringing on another person's rights, then we need to meet the needs of every other person. But all in all, I want to say thank you for the organizers, and personally, I've learned something today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. You've spoken greatly. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. I see one hand up. Mr. Busari, you still want to say something?
Yeah,
or we draw the curtain?
Just one word before you draw the curtain. I want to thank you, the main organizer of this talk. And I know before this talk, you already alluded to the fact that we probably need a follow-up talk, where probably maybe as suggested by the immediate past cooperative president, the member of CMC of the company will be invited, and where the speaker will not only treat the concept, but treat maybe key instruments, how they operate in practical terms, so that the people in cooperative can actually understand how it operates and just oppose it with the conventional instrument they have now and see how they can bring some of them on board so that some of us can benefit from it. I suggest we have a follow-up lecture where the lecturer will come and really explain the instruments in details. Maybe we'll need more than 1 hour for such a meeting. Thanks.
All right. So this feedback is greatly taken. And in fact, for this comment, we have someone in the house today who has been quiet. He's just been observing. He's somebody who works with Jais Bank, I would say. He has been involved in developing packages like this for Jais Bank. And as a friend of the house, I know he's willing, when the time comes very soon, to invite him to come and, give us some kind of more guidance on our own packages in-house. He's here on the call. I know he's just trying to be an observer today. So that's one comment I would have on that. On the same note, also, there's an institute called Institute of Islamic Finance Professional in Nigeria. So they have this annual training for people like ourselves who are busy, but could just create a day to go through a training where we will learn more about the technicalities. So the program for this year is coming up next Saturday, 15th of October. It's a Zoom or hybrid event, but it's a paid-for event, because in that session, they'll be teaching us the things to look for, some samples of packages that are existing in other places today. The program is going to be held next Saturday. So if we want to participate, actually what I did was to ask them, and they told us for one person participating is about 145,000 per head, because it's a very formal training kind of. But that if, for example, we can give our word to have like 5 participants, they could bring the price down to us. And as of my last discussion with them, they said they could bring it as low as 120K per person. So we have between now and I think Thursday is the registration closing, to say that if some of us are interested deeply, really, we can circulate the registration. We can collate within ourselves and have a few of us attend, that will probably end up being part of this whole course. I think it won't be a bad idea. I don't know if that gets across.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Okay, there's the brother from Jais. Okay, thank you. Go on.
So, just one word or a few words before you call it. I appreciate the opportunity given to me to be in attendance, and I also appreciate the step you have taken so far. Because you have mentioned me, and I think it's better and fair to also show up so that I'm also here. But I want to advise from what Prof has said. The cooperative executive or the business arms of the cooperative, as well as the ESCO, need to sit and see what they want to do. That should be the first thing to take decision on. I also want to advise, I know of one institute in Ilongwe that based their own training on Islamic cooperative. So I would have advised that if you go for, based on my own experience, because I do training for other cooperative like this, I want to advise you that if you go through the training, the one you mentioned now for Institute of Islamic Finance, they base it on Islamic finance, and Islamic finance is a wide concept. I want to advise that go for the one that we specifically mention the don'ts and don'ts of Islamic cooperative. From there, you can take your decision if it's being attended by the ESCO or the business arms of the cooperative. It's just the advice coming from me. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's also a good one. Thanks so much for that comment. I mean, give and take, all that we've agreed has to be done next is that the conversation has started and it shouldn't die down. I mean, die out here. We have to follow up. We have to see what can be done. And I think that's what everyone has agreed to. I'm actually very glad that the comment from our non-Muslim participants and of course the cooperative is that there's willingness for inclusiveness. And I think that gives some kind of satisfaction. Thank you so much, everyone. It's time for Salat, and we would like to draw the curtain at this point. We really appreciate your time. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jazakumullah khairan.
Thank you. Thank you, Jazakallah khairan.
Jazakallah khairan. Thank you.